Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley webinar. I'm really excited to sit back and listen for the next hour. We get the pleasure of listening to Dan Mori, who, Dan, I got to read all of these things here. So you are the president and chair of Employment Solutions. You are a managing partner of the National Independent Staffing Association. You're a managing partner of Staffing Mastery, and you're a strategic advisor to Staffing Hub. And I didn't want to scroll any further on LinkedIn. So,
Yeah, I
what a
sound
great
like a guy
list.
that doesn't know what I want to be when he grows up.
Love that. But for everybody, I've known Dan for a long time. Dan is, besides being a great human being, phenomenal sales trainer, really knowledgeable what's going on in the industry. So I'm excited to right now sit back, turn off my video, let Dan take it over, and give us a master class in selling. So take it away, Dan.
Awesome. David, thanks for having me here. I'm going to share my screen and get right into it to give the people what they actually came for. And David, I will need you to give me that kind of permission. I have a lot of things, but I don't have the authority to share my screen yet.
Now you do.
Hey, here we go. Awesome. So I am going to get this out of the way. So as David mentioned, we are here today to talk about how to crush your sales kickoff. I am going to jump right into things because I do have a lot of information to get through because there's several key components that you need to get right in order to make sure that you have a really strong sales plan that your salespeople can execute on. I will mention that I do have some time left at the end for questions. However, if you do have any questions that pop up in the meantime, feel free just to put them into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll make sure that they get answered at some point during the presentation. So with that, just really quickly, David mentioned all these things that I do. I am of the industry. I've been in this industry for a long time. I've been in small markets, big markets, mid markets. I've sold into all different verticals. I have a lot of experience selling and literally being in the shoes that you're in. I've experienced really tough, hard selling markets and really good markets. And I've realized that we're headed back into a hard selling market. In addition to that, I am the leader of NISA, which is the National Independent Staffing Association, and we're just curating a really amazing community of staffing professionals that want to share pair advice, best practices, and really learn together so we can all get better. And then we also bring really cool content to the industry, like our upcoming sales summit that you're going to hear a little bit more about here shortly. But what you're going to get out of today is you're going to learn how to crush your sales plan. And it starts with these areas. You're going to learn how to identify the right prospects, because if you don't know who you're going after, it makes going after the right people really difficult. So we're going to teach you how to figure that out really quickly. We're also going to talk to you about how to structure a sales plan. A lot of people don't really know the right pieces or the right order or the way to really do this. If there's a framework, there is a structured process that works really, really, really well. And I'm going to share with you what that looks like today. And then you can actually take that and customize it for your own business. We're also going to talk about how to maximize referrals. This is one of the best sources of leads and new clients is your referrals. And there is a super simple, free, easy to implement technique that I'm going to share with you today that your people will be able to implement immediately, literally starting tomorrow, and start doing this to start cultivating more referrals into their pipeline. I'm also going to walk you through the key components of using LinkedIn as a sales rep and how they should be using it to expand their network, expand their reach, expand their brand and their influence, so the market starts seeing them as an expert and a trusted advisor, which is going to go a really long way to helping you close more business at favorable rates. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about the right results, the accountability mechanisms that I personally use that makes the life of the sales manager a whole lot easier, trying to keep your arms around this, whether you got one sales rep or 30. Okay. So, and the reason we're going to walk through this is because this is really what you expect of every single salesperson. They need to do a lot of things and they have to be very efficient in doing it. So I'm going to show you literally the way that I do this. Abe Lincoln, this is my guy right here. I read this on the internet. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Our entire session today is going to be in this same mindset. Abe Lincoln, if he wanted to chop down a tree, he would spend the majority of the time doing planning and preparation. And that's what you need to do as well. The reason that most sales plans and salespeople fail is because they do not do enough planning and preparation to make sure it will execute properly, right? My friends over in the Marines, they have a saying that says proper planning prevents poor performance. It's a great tongue twister. I love trying to say it on live presentations like this. So, but this is what we need to do. And the things that you need to plan for fall in these 6 buckets. Okay, we need to get clarity around these 6 areas, and we're going to dive pretty deep into each one of these over the next 50 minutes. And ultimately, to summarize, the very first thing that you need to do if you want to crush your sales plan is you need to define what good business actually is. All business is not good business. And if it's not good, it's bad. And if your salespeople are out there bringing in anything, they might run the risk of bringing in a bad client, and a bad client consumes resources that will actually downvalue and decrease the value in your ability to perform for some of your other better clients. So you really need to get clear on defining what good is. This is going to go a long way with helping your salespeople know exactly what they're looking for and know how to sell to it when they find it. Okay. The next thing is the market. You really need to take a look at the market that your salespeople are selling into, whether it's a local market and it's geography based, or whether it's an industry or a vertical. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to look at the market in a certain way that's going to help you identify that good business quickly, right? The faster you can identify good business and know how to segment it and organize it into a market is going to help you set your plan up really, really well. And again, we're going to go deep into all these things. I'm just summarizing right now to show you what we're going to get into so you know what not to miss. Then messaging. I actually rely a lot on my friends at Haley Marketing for this framework here. You know, they are experts at actually messaging and conveying value to the industry. And I have to tell you, words matter, right? What you say to a prospect will tell them a lot about your organization. You know, namely, if you actually provide realistic value and if you can help them solve their challenges, right? Or if you are a complete not fit. So you have to know, how do you actually talk to the good clients that you have defined that you want to go after? And there's a specific way to talk to good ones and not to the bad ones. And we're going to cover that. And then the goal. It astounds me today how many companies or salespeople don't actually have a clear goal and a plan that aligns with hitting the goal. Goals fuel our purpose. You know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? So we need to have a clear plan that's going to get us to where we want to be in the most efficient, you know, predictable manner, right? And that's a goal is going to be that piece. And then we move into the approach. You have to get clear on the actual way you're going to approach the market. You have to be thoughtful and intentional with the way that you're going to identify these good prospects, the way that you're going to segment your market and build them into your plan, the way that you're going to build your cadence to make sure you're getting the right touches in the right order in the right way to get the, attention and interest of your prospects. How are you going to deliver that perfect message to get them to the desire to want to take action and move forward with your company, right? How are you going to set this plan up, this work plan, in order to achieve the goal, right? All of those things are incredibly essential to the salesperson. And this next bucket, accountability, this is more important to the salespeople than you probably realize, but it makes the life of the sales manager, the sales leader, a lot better. This is where you actually build a system of accountability that creates that culture of excellence and performance in your business. And I'm going to just walk you through really quickly, like what my system looks like. And then you're going to get a bunch of templates that you can actually explore later and see how you can make it fit into your world. So let's jump in. Defining good. Like, I think inherently we know what good business is or what bad business is, right? However, very few agencies actually write it down. The very few agencies actually map it out and clearly train their salespeople on what good business is and what it is not. And if they're trained very well to identify good business in the moment, they will become much better at selling to good business and closing good business for you. And the more good business that you can bring in service, the better everything works. Your recruiters are happier, they're more successful, the clients are more successful. So you are going to do a lot better focusing specifically on just the good business here. So first question, yes, the slides and recording are going to be available after the event. I know Haley does a great job putting the recordings on their website, Lunch with Haley. You'll be able to go get that there. So everything is in here. What's also really cool is this slide deck. Also, dual purpose as a bit of a workbook, which you'll see in just a couple seconds. So you'll be able to use this to apply some of these techniques I'm going to teach you today and apply them really, really quickly, which I'm excited about. Some of this stuff you'll actually be able to do by this weekend, which is fantastic, right? So what does good look like? What do you need to define? Your clients. What is a good client and what is a bad client? And I will tell you, good clients add extra value to the organization and they help you hit your goals quicker. Bad clients, they consume more resources than you get in return for your value. And if you don't clearly define this, you will stay stagnant, plateau, or even worse, you'll start to regress. Okay. And right now, there is a limit. Talent is finite. You can only place so many people. So you have to make sure you maximize the value of every placement you get by putting them at good clients, right? And putting them into good jobs and roles. So teach your salespeople what the good jobs and roles really are that we're going to be the most successful at, and what the pay rates for those roles should be, and then what the bill rates and markups should be. So they know how to actually speak and negotiate and navigate the sales conversation as expeditiously as possible, right? Or expediently as possible. And then we have to align it to the sales process, right? So this is what this looks like. The first worksheet that you're going to focus on is going to look something like this. Again, you can do it right on this slide here, actually the next slide specifically. But you're going to identify your top industries or departments. It can be 1, 2, 3, maybe up to 5. I wouldn't go too much bigger than that. You want to be super focused here, but I start with 2. Start this exercise with just 2 and find out what are the 2 industries or departments that you were the most successful at staffing. Go look at your performance data, talk to your recruiters, find out what jobs they like to work on and what jobs they're easiest to fill, right? Look at the financial data and see which jobs are the most profitable and the best return on the resources, right? And then just list them in here. You're just going to put them on those lines. And then next, we're going to go a level deeper and you're going to identify what are the top jobs for each one of those industries. Pick the top 3, 4, maybe 5 jobs at each industry or department, and put them in there. And again, same concept. You're just going to go talk to your recruiters, look at your performance data and see which roles that you're just best equipped to fill. And it's actually worth noting which ones you're not, which orders stay open longer or have a lower success rate. And we should just stay away from that stuff, right? We have to be efficient in what we're going after. And that's going to build a really good track record of serving our clients in a very positive way. And I will tell you, once you focus on that, you're going to have a superior product to be selling, which is going to amplify sales even further. So this is what the sheet might look like, right? Let's say that you are, and again, 2 side-by-side examples. This might not be the same agency, but let's say it's warehouse or let's say it's hospital, right? Healthcare organization. For a warehouse, you might say, hey, our top 3 jobs are like order packers, like a picker packer, someone that's going to get an order, packing boxes, whatever. Maybe it's a machine operator. Maybe it's someone that's actually running the machine, doing setups, whatever it might be. Material handler, operating the fork truck, but moving the widgets through the warehouse and eventually out the door, right? Which is really, really important to that organization. We're on a hospital side. Maybe it's an RN or an LPN. Maybe it's a tech, maybe it's something like this. You're going to look at where your top industries are and your most successful fills are at. Okay. This is just a super simple worksheet. You should literally, there's still enough time in the day, even here on the East Coast, to literally whip this out by closing time, right? So focus on this. This narrows your focus in. This is going to help us target approach the market here. So the next thing we want to do, we want to get clarity around what is the good pay rate and bill range that we need to see in order to actually get to kind of confirm that this is a good job or a good rec to bring in, right? And if it's in the warehouse, you're going to create a rate card for this. And you'll literally say, hey, rate card for this industry, that's one of my top industries that I serve, is warehouse. And those 3 orders you can see on the left-hand side, that's where they are. And if you've got, 1 or 2 more, just kind of add a couple more rows. And then your columns are going to say, hey, for an order packer in your respective market where you're placing them, put what the acceptable pay range is. Maybe it's 17 to 19 bucks an hour. This way, when your salesperson is talking to the prospect and they're like, hey, we're looking for order packers and we pay $15 an hour, they know, okay, so this is in my industry. It's a good industry. It's a good job, but it's not a good pay rate. So now they know where to focus the sales conversation to see if they can actually sell it into that desirable range. And what's really, really cool is if they know that range, I'm going to tell you where to source this data to be super like expert level sales here. If they know this range and they advise the client, and they say, hey, I understand where you're at. Can I ask you a question? Do you experience a lot of turnover or maybe poor performance in these order packer roles that you're paying $15 an hour for? Yeah, we're really seeing that. hey, not to be critical, and like the world has changed pretty quick. Most companies haven't been able to keep up, but right now the market for a good order packer is in the $17 and $19 an hour range. So if you're only paying 15, you might actually be getting inexperienced or underqualified people to do the job that aren't really good at meeting your requirements, right? So you're sort of moving the definition of a good employee onto your client. So now you're advising them like an expert. Sometimes they'll bump the pay rate, sometimes they won't. But if they won't, you might not want to bring that order back to your recruiters because they're not going to want to fill an order packer for 15 when there's only so many order packers available to them that they might be able to place somewhere else in that $17 and $19 an hour range. So this is why it's so important to know. Not only does it let your salesperson know what good is and what's not, but it also tells them what they need to focus on selling into, right? Same thing with the bill range, like know what your markups or bill ranges are going to be for each of these positions. So they know where is the sweet spot. How do they negotiate to a desirable gross margin amount for your agency based on your strategic plan, right? So where I pull my data, three sources, okay, predominantly two. There is one that I've used in the past. The main two, number one, my own placement data. I will go look at all of these positions that I place and I just create the range and I see where the most of them are getting placed with the best performance, the best fill percentages, the best placement, performance data. And I just create that. Second one, Indeed, and they changed the name, Indeed Insights or Analytics or whatever it is, but it's basically they keep changing the name. It's the same thing as Career Builder Supply and Demand Essential, where it just tells you what people are posting those jobs at to give you sort of a market range. And then again, Career Builder Supply and Demand was another really good tool. I used to use that one. I don't use that one as much anymore, but these will tell you how to do this and you can fill this rate card out. And this is really cool. Now, this is telling your salesperson how to sell your service to an industry to get a good job at a good pay rate, at a good bill rate in the right markup range, right? Now they're equipped to have that conversation. This takes training on the front end. So the next piece as you start to align this to the sales process is now you have to do some sales training. You have to create the sales questions to qualify good. They have to know how to ask about the positions, how to ask about the pay rates, and how to ask about, the performance that might be underperforming if a pay rate's not where it's at, and know how to talk about these things and know how to ask questions to uncover the pain points that are going to get them, to understand, are there good jobs available that I can get? And then can I position myself as the right solution to fill them for this prospect, right? You're going to train them on how to do that. That's a whole other workshop, so I can't talk too much on this one today, but that's really where you're going to focus your training and teaching them people how to actually navigate that sales conversation. The next thing that we need to get clarity on, especially for your sales rep, is just defining the market, okay? And the market is broken down. And again, this could be a geography or an industry. If you sell into a certain vertical nationwide, then that's your geography, right? But you have to figure out a way to actually segment the market so you have what's called a market map. So you understand where your prospects are, where your clients are coming from, all of this stuff, right? And then more importantly, how do you actually methodically work through the market to kind of cultivate those prospects and new customers, essentially? So we're going to look at this. I'm going to show you the model that I personally take with doing this. The first one is a geography, okay? And this is if you are, in a kind of a hub and spoke model, or you sell into a specific geography, you'd pick a location, right? If let's say you're staffing around a specific brick and mortar branch office, this might be your location. If it's nationwide, then you can actually look maybe in certain pockets, and align your locations to sales campaigns, okay? But you would do this for each one of your industries, right? So like if industry one was warehousing, you would actually look up all of the warehouses within certain radius of that central hub location, right? I like to look at 10, 25, and 50 miles in most cases, because that's really about, maybe an hour to an hour and a half effective service range around a branch. Some more metro areas, I'm not going to get to the 50 miles. I might do, like a 5, 10, 25. I might condense it if it's a really populated area. Okay. So if I'm looking at New York City or like Dallas or Los Angeles, things like that, I'm going to condense this a little bit, but I'm still going to have 3 rings. Okay. So I want to really map this out, kind of like a dartboard or kind of a bullseye here. So I want to segment this out. closest to the office, further away. Okay, I want to really fill in my serviceable footprint. And then I use a three-tier prospect or client definition model, A, B, and C. A's, these are your anchor accounts. These are the bigger accounts. These are going to have kind of your higher end of your head count that you service. You know, if you're a larger organization, you're constantly staffing companies with 50, 100, 200 head count, these are your A's, right? If you're a mid-market or smaller, an A might be somebody that has, 10 to 20 people at any given time, right? For you, this is going to be kind of your bigger set of clients. So if you look at all of the clients that you currently service, just segment it and say, hey, the top third that have as far as headcount or value to your organization, these are my A clients. The middle third, these are my B clients. And the last third, this is going to be your C clients. Typically your smaller one, you might have one person, two people, or maybe get an order occasionally. You're just going to segment this, right? So now you have this cross-section model that you're looking at, and now you apply these two things together to create this map. And you're going to identify how many prospects are A-level prospects within 10 miles of my office. How many A prospects are within 25 miles of my office and within 50, and how many B, C, and you start mapping this out, and you literally organize your prospect data this way. Does that make sense? Awesome. If you guys are with me so far, I know I'm talking super fast. It's because I'm a salesperson. But if you're with me and you're liking what you're hearing so far, just throw something in chat, throw some thumbs up here, say, yeah, I'm liking this right here. And we are going to keep moving on. As you can see, oh, wow, this is cool. I've actually not seen this feature yet with all the thumbs up and the hand claps just mysteriously going across my screen. That's magical. Thank you. Let's keep that going. If I say anything at any time during the presentation that you're like, wow, that's great, just do that. That's actually really fun. It's really for my benefit, but if I feel benefit, then I'm going to keep giving it back to y'all. So you can see on this screen right here in that bottom right-hand corner, I did throw a 512 asterisk. That's because all of this adds up to about 512. This plays into a future slide, so just remember that number. So here we go. Let's take a look at this in the next level of mapping target prospects. And I'm going to hit on the other side, healthcare. That was like the other example industry that we were in. If this is your thing, you're going to have to map out where do they congregate. So think about this for a second. This is actually something that I heard David talk about at our the National Independent Staffing Association leadership meeting we had in October. David came in and he actually shared with our group, and he talked about like this idea of actually capturing the influence of your prospective buyer outside of their workplace. This is what I mean by this. When you prospect somebody, you're typically calling their office, you're emailing their work email, you're dropping by their physical location, you're sending a letter or postcard to their work address. Everything is kind of centered on prospecting them to the work location, right? But in reality, the attention of your decision maker, your buyers, whether it be head of HR, procurement, senior leaders, whatever it might be you're calling on, is oftentimes somewhere else. They're looking at other HR leaders or other senior executives. They're basically getting their insights and their information about their job or their industry from somewhere else too. And you have to figure out where is that coming from and how can you get into that sphere of influence and get into their orbit outside of just prospecting them at their place of work. So it's really, really important to learn your industries and list out where do they congregate, right? Healthcare, maybe it's a healthcare association, right? Maybe they're part of a healthcare specific association or a specific trade association that they're a part of. And if you service that industry, you should also become a part of that because that's their community. And if you want to work with the community, you have to become part of the community, right? Next one, SHRM. A lot of us deal with HR people, and SHRM is like the central hub for HR people. They have a lot of great events. They have a lot of great ways to actually get with the influencers of the HR community. So you should be looking at that. Are there LinkedIn groups that you should be participating in, right? And this actually overlaps with the LinkedIn plan I'm going to show you in just a few slides here. But map this out. Tell your salespeople where they're most likely to run into the decision maker they're trying to connect with, but also the people that influence those decision makers. So now you're expanding your sphere of influence. And this is the type of sales planning that actually takes to be successful in selling today. It's not as simple as just picking up the phone or walking into a place anymore. We've kind of evolved into a different way of buying. So now that we have an idea of like what a good client looks like, what a good job looks like, pay rate, all of that, and we've segmented our market and we've kind of mapped out, where our people are and we've kind of ranked them and we figured out where they're congregating. Now we have to actually craft. I use that word very intentionally. We have to craft how we're going to talk to them. What are you going to say when you get in front of a good prospect? I'm going to tell you right now, sales, it's hard and it's only getting harder. The latest staffing industry analyst, pulse report that came out that I saw showed that it's the first time in over a decade that sales is perceived as harder in staffing than recruiting, right? In over a decade, since literally back in the tail end of the Great Recession, with the exception of during the pandemic. And we all know how hard it was to sell then. And it's actually causing this hard selling market now. So your chances when you get in front of somebody that's a good prospect, the window is small. You have to capitalize on it, right? You have to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime within the lifetime of the opportunity. Well, once you get somebody's attention and they're interested in what you might have to say, if you don't get them to desire your service enough to take action, you're going to miss the opportunity. And that all comes down to having a very well crafted message. I will tell you, for the actual content of that message, Haley Marketing are great, great experts at this, but I'm going to give you the framework. Okay. The first thing that you need to be looking at is you have to figure out what are the top 3 challenges of your good industries, right? If we picked warehouse as one of our good industries that we want to target, we have to get very specific at understanding what are the top challenges that they're facing right now. And this messaging has to stay relevant. This is something that you should look at in, like, no more infrequent than once a year, right? Because needs change, markets change. Right now, it's still being driven by this: labor shortages, skills gaps, seasonal demands. Like, these are the big ones hitting, warehouse. Seasonal demand, this is crazy. There's actually a different driver of seasonal demands now with some of the supply chain issues that we're still facing, right? So seasonal might not be your typical buying or selling season. It could literally be the supply chain season that they're dealing with. They might need to literally scale people up quickly when they can get a supplier, a shipment in for their widgets or whatever, and then like scale that workforce down when the supply chain drives up, right? So like that's a whole other complexity. But for you to figure out the messaging and train your salespeople on what to say and how to say it to actually get the attention and interest of your target good prospects, you first need to know this: what are the challenges that they're facing, and what are the negative business impacts of those challenges, right? And then once you identify that, you need to start training your people. And this starts with you getting really clear on how you actually do this, but how do you solve the challenges, right? In my very simple sales methodology, there's only 3 things that need to be achieved, during or learned during a sales meeting. Is there a problem? Is it worth solving? And can I solve it? Right? Is there a problem? Is there a labor shortage? Is there a skills gap? Is there a seasonal demand? Is that problem disruptive enough for the actual prospect to actually take on solving it? Right? Once you figure those 2 things out, if those are both a yes and there's an issue and it's worth solving, you need to determine, can you solve it? And if you actually don't know how you best solve this to deliver your prospect to their desired end state, then you're going to miss the mark. Your salesperson is not going to be equipped to actually meet the moment, right? So you have to get really good and say, hey, this is how we solve the labor shortage problem. And these are just template answers. You're going to create your own answers for this. We maintain deep lists of vetted talent pools of qualified candidates that match the roles of our clients, right? That way there's not a shortage. Like, we can fill in the delta. You have your permanent headcount, you have what you need, we'll fill in the gap, right? Speaking of gap, skills gap. This is how we address that problem, and they get very specific in this. And you're going to craft your messaging that's going to align with your brand, but it's also going to align with what your clients actually need of you, right? You've heard me speak before, you've heard me say this: clients don't buy what you sell, they buy what you sell does for them. So they really need the output of what a higher skilled employee is going to do for them. They really need the higher output of what having a full workforce is going to do for them, right? So you need to figure out, how does your solution deliver that for them? Seasonal demand. Our qualified talent pools can be deployed for short periods to support your seasonal needs, right? Like, they need to know this, and this is going to be in your messaging, and this is going to be in your marketing emails that maybe Haley's teeing up for you. This is going to be in your salespeople, vocabulary. This is going to be in your sales enablement literature and materials that you're going to be handing out. All of this needs to be consistent. So every single time that you touch a prospect, they're understanding that you understand their problems and that you have solutions that are aligned to solve them and actually deliver the results they're looking for, right? And then, as I mentioned, the desirable end state. They buy what you do for them, right? So labor shortage, less role vacancy decreases costs associated with overtime and shutting down lines. Or labor shortage, it basically improves productivity. It keeps your customers happy, right? It keeps your warehouse running on time, your lines running on time, your widgets shipping on time, and your customers happy. That's what our service does for you, right? Skills gap, a higher skilled workforce shortens training time, which improves production, right? Also reduces accidents and things like that, right? There's a lot of benefits to these things, you know. Seasonal optimizes production and staffing spend to scale workforce up and down. Only spend on your workforce when you actually need it. So you're not wasting dollars on idle production time, right? Like these are the things that they're looking for. So I'm going to go through this a little quicker. I included this here, like some of my other slides we're going to see is just a template that you can use after the fact. But this is a model called AIDA, A-I-D-A. It stands for attention, interest, desire, and action, because what you're trying to do with all of your marketing, prospecting, and sales is you're trying to get the attention of your good target prospects. You're trying to get them interested in what you have to say. And what you have to say should basically trigger a desire for them to want to take action. And there's a very specific formula that David and the folks at Haley are very good at running you through. But this is just a super quick example. You can read this after the fact. But if you're actually saying, there it is, David's on point here. He's not sitting back. He's an active participant. So if you had a marketing ad or sales enablement material and it said attention warehouse and storage professionals, who do you think is going to look at that? Or even better yet, warehouse and storage professionals, are you struggling with staffing challenges in your warehouse or storage facility? Whose attention is this going to get? Your target audience that actually is facing that problem. Remember, is there a problem? If they're not in that industry and they're not struggling with those problems, they're going to ignore it, which means you don't want to talk to them anyway right now, right? Because they're not a fit. So that would be a waste of time. So this is how you use AIDA to help segment the market. What are your challenges? Labor shortages, training skills gaps, seasonal labor demands. If those are the ones you're best equipped to staff, and you call it out, the ones that actually have those issues are going to be the ones that actually engage with you. Heidi. Oh, my old friends there. Good to see you on there. Yeah, yes, this will actually be made available after the session. Haley will get that out to you. So interest, again, I'm not going to read through the slide. You all can read this after the fact, but this is basically how you actually do what you do or how you address it. You put things into like our extensive network, recruitment strategies, comprehensive screening assessments, ongoing support, flexible workforce solution. You're going to basically put these things together in how you address the three challenges, right? And this is building that interest. They're going to say, hey, I'm interested in working with them because they have these things that are going to lead to the desired end result. Desire. This is where you start to create that desire in them to take action, right? You start talking about that future end state. And then obviously action, you want to have a call to action that's going to get them to move and work with you, right? And right now, I know that is one of the biggest challenges we have is the sales cycle is taking longer and longer, right? Because people they're inactive, they're slowing down. And you have to actually teach them what the cost of inaction is, right? And this is a great time. You can see that asterisk story inventory. You should actually align a story or a mini testimonial for all the ways that you've solved these problems and that your customer have realized that desired end state. Organize them internally for your sales training so that anybody can actually pull from that story inventory and share it during the sales process, even if it wasn't their customer or their experience, or even if it happened before they were even working with you, right? It was still your company that helped solve that problem. And when you get to tell stories of actual results, it creates social proof, which is so important to buying anything. If you want to know why you buy what you buy on Amazon or anywhere else, it's probably influenced by reviews. That's because there's social proof. And your story inventory is a really cool tool for doing that. Define the goal. This is going to be really, really important to do because without it, the salesperson lacks direction. And a salesperson that lacks direction cannot be blamed for missing the mark, right? You can't be mad at someone for not doing something that you didn't tell them they should do, essentially. So you have to identify what the goal is. How much needs to come from new sales? Because that's the salesperson's responsibility, right? Align the goal to the work, validate it financially, making sure that it's actually feasible, and then communicate the goal. And we're going to talk through this. So for today's example, let's just pretend that your goal for 2024 is to be a $20 million agency. You know, for some of you, that's probably a very lofty goal. Some of you might be spot on. Others might be like, I don't want to go back to that level. Just put your numbers in here, right? You're going to say, hey, our total revenue goal is $20 million or whatever it is for you. Of that, our gross margin or gross profit needs to be 4 million. And we would also like to see 1 million of perm. If you actually separate that, if that's a service you offer, you would actually list that out, right? Get clear. Then there's a couple techniques that you can do to actually identify how much of it should come from your existing market, right? There's a couple techniques I teach that are like year-over-year GM retention or client retention you can actually use to determine this with some level of accuracy. But how much is going to come from existing clients? You'll map this out because this is going to come from your recruiters, your account managers, or the people that are responsible for client relationship development, right? And that's their line item, that's their plan. And then you'll map out what is the GM that has to come from that, how much perm should come from the existing clients, and then what's left over is your new sales, right? This is your goal. Okay, we're going to do 20 million. 2 of it has to come from the sales team, right? 400,000 of that GM has to come from new sales. And we need to get $200,000 of new perm business in the door this year, right? So you would set your goals like this and again, map it out super clear. If I showed this to a sales team, everyone would have clarity on how much revenue do we need, how much gross margin do we need, and how much perm do we need, right? And they would know where it comes from, existing or new. And then you would get granular and breaking the goals up and giving it to the respective producers. You know, so if you had 2 salespeople in this example, you know, maybe one gets $1 million, the other one gets $1 million, right? And you'd split it up based on the capacity of the salesperson and the market opportunity. But this is how you map this out. Now you have to align it to the work, okay? Now you have to actually speak and translate these numbers into the language of the producer. The producer is the recruiter, it's the salesperson. In this instance, we're talking about salespeople. So it's clients and headcount. That's the language of the producer. Yes, we're all money motivated, but when we're actually thinking about what our production is, it's getting new clients, it's increasing headcount, because those are the things that actually result in the money, right? We have to get new clients and new headcount in order to grow our revenue. So we analyze the data and we'll say, we'll look at $2 million of revenue or $400,000 of gross margin more specifically. And we'll say, on average, how many clients billing does it take to generate that level of revenue and gross margin? And on average, how many headcount does it take to generate that level of revenue and gross margin, right? So we're looking at this here like, okay, on average, we need 8 clients and 40 billing headcount. Now you're talking the producer's language. They know what they have to go after from a client standpoint, from a headcount standpoint. What's really cool, this is law of averages. So once you figure this out, this is where you need to be by the middle of the year. So end of June, you need to have acquired 8 new clients and have 40 new headcount billing on your books, right? In order to produce this. So if this is the middle and you're starting essentially at 0, because this is a new sales plan, double it to get your year-end goals. So by the end of the year, you need to have acquired 16 new clients and 80 headcount, right? In this example. And if you've got further questions on how all that works, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm happy to chat about that. But this is how you set those goals. And then if you really want to lock it down into quarterly plans, you'll actually just fill in the numbers in between, right? If you had to go from the beginning of the year to the middle, you know, and that's 8 and 40 at the midpoint of the year, then it's 4 clients and 20 headcount by the end of Q1. Simple as that. And you got to be sitting at 12 and 60 by the end of Q3. And you can just map this piece out so you can actually see how your production is going to grow as the year goes on. So now you've got these guidelines that you're working towards, and your people know exactly where they should be on the quarter. And you could even go down to the month if you wanted to. I don't. I actually like to basically set quarterly goals and run quarterly plans, but you could do that. Then you have to communicate the goal to your team, right? Communication is so important. You cannot assume that they know what to do and how they should do it, right? And it might look something just like this. We need to generate $400,000 in staffing gross margin and $200,000 in perm gross margin from newly acquired clients. Crystal clear. We know exactly how much we need and where it has to come from. Based on our current data, This would be averaging 40 headcount, which is typically about 8 clients. Now we're giving them the framework for this. In order to achieve this, we need you to acquire 16 clients and add a net new weekly headcount of 80 by the end of the year, right? Again, if the average is 8 clients and 40 headcount, that's the midpoint because the average is the middle. So we need it by the middle of the year. So we double that to get to the end of the year. Additionally, you're going to need to acquire 5 new clients that submit 10 total perm orders, assuming your average perm order is 20 grand. We will set quarterly goals of 4 new staffing clients and 1 to 2 perm clients, and we're going to measure success by adding 20 net new headcount weekly and getting 2 to 3 perm orders filled. So now we've clearly communicated what the goal is, where it's going to come from, and how we're going to measure success, right? Very, very important. Let them know what success looks like. Next, we need to define the approach. Now we've identified what our goals are. How are we going to do the work to actually go get it, right? How are we going to build our sales cadence? What resources do we have available? How are we going to build our networking plan, the referral plan? What are we going to do with LinkedIn? How are we going to do all of these things? And you have to train your people on how to do this, right? Here's an example. I am a huge proponent of the 12-week plan. I love running things in quarters. I like the campaign, the sales funnel stuff that can actually fill leads into this. I'll get to that question just in 1 second here about how many people. So this is the campaign that I run. This fits nicely within the quarter. We do it as an ongoing rolling piece, but this is going to fit nicely into the quarter and set your quarterly goals up here. This is an example of a plan. You can actually adjust which prospecting techniques fit your salespeople, the market you're going after, the frequency you want to have it in the weeks. But this is just an example where you might start the campaign off with LinkedIn, doing some outreach, doing calls and emails and walk-ins in week 2, and then running them through the rest of the campaign, right? And you would just take a prospect through this 12-week plan. So the very first week, you might send a LinkedIn message, do a LinkedIn DM, do a connection request, something like that. Week 2, you're going to call them, email them, do a walk-in, so on and so forth, and you're going to move them through this entire cadence. The cadence is the key, okay? So the reason that you do this is to make sure you get multiple touches over a long enough period of time to catch them when they're in the buying window, right? And to get their attention, right? That's why it's so, so important. The thing I'll say about this is once the prospect's going to fall into 1 of 3 categories. 1, they're going to say not interested. If that's the case, you just move them out of the cadence, remove them from it, and recycle them later, right? Check in at a different time. They might say, hey, I would like to talk to you. You're going to remove them from the cadence and put them into your sales cycle. Or you might get nothing, and you're just going to run them all the way through week 12. They're going to fall at the bottom, having never responded, and then you're just going to recycle them into a future campaign. Simple as that, right? So we had a question, is how many people on the sales team are needed to meet those goals or the goals per salesperson? So this is specific to you and your company and the prospects that you go after. If you only service huge, large enterprise, you might need smaller number of companies. And if you need smaller number of companies, you might need less salespeople to do it, right? So this is really, I've seen people have like, hey, I want a salesperson to bring in $1 million of new business every single year. I've seen, goals as high as 5 million a year, depending on the industry you service. So that's really going to be specific to your company. If you want to get super granular on that and maybe workshop that a bit, just send me an email afterwards and we'll chat. So some resources to help with the cadence piece. 1, winning the staffing sales game. This is really, really big. This is Tom Erb's book. He's a mastermind in this industry. If you've read this book, you know how good it is. If you don't have this book, don't run out and buy it just yet. I'm going to tell you where you can get it for free at the end here. But also 12-Week Year by Brian Moran. This is amazing. It really talks about periodization and how really efficient people work in these kind of focused periods of time. This is where it really influenced my model to go in these quarterly sprints. It's an amazing book. Brian is a really dynamic guy. And then also over in Staffing Monthly a couple months ago, we actually had John and Erica from Aviante talk about how to sell staffing services. And they actually walked through the cadences that they've used in the past to sell, to be very successful selling staffing services. And then another resource that's really, really important if you're looking to beef up your sales, this is a can't miss event. This is something that we're hosting. We're partnered with Haley on this. They see the value in this Staffing Sales Summit. It's happening in Orlando, Florida. So if you're anywhere kind of like north of maybe North Carolina or the north half of the country, maybe you just go for the sunshine. It's going to be at Margaritaville, super fun event for a sales focused exclusively on training salespeople. So if you are looking to up your sales game or have your salespeople up their performance, get to this event. You can go check it out. I'm going to send you a link to this more at the end. But then you need to teach your salesperson how to build their networking plan, right? Going back to what I said, how do they congregate, right? Healthcare association, get involved in the association, find out what events they actually have and network there, engage there, contribute content there, be a member of the community, establish your influence and authority there, right? SHRM, get involved with your local SHRM chapter. SHRM is an amazing organization. And a lot of times, if you actually like public speaking, you have the content to speak on, they will invite you to the front of the room to actually speak to the HR people. There's a number of times that I've actually presented to the HR people about the challenges of recruiting and how to do it professionally. And every single time I walk out of there with leads, right? It's a great group to be a part of. LinkedIn groups, find out where your people are engaging and go be there and become part of that community and then map it out. You just put it on the map, on your planner and say, hey, this week you're going to go to this healthcare association event. Here there's a SHRM event. This LinkedIn group is pretty active, so I want you posting in there once a week, right? And you'll just plan it out as part of the work plan for the salespeople. Referral plan. Write this down. This is the super simple free technique that you can implement right away. Believe it or not, there are other people that sell different services to the same people that you sell your staffing services to. Go find them. Go find people that you genuinely like and you want to collaborate with and actually create this free referral network. This is how I do it. I actually go find other people that sell to my target buyers, which is typically senior leaders of organizations. And I actually just invite them to meet with me once a month over coffee or lunch, sometimes even virtually, just to catch up and see what's going on. And then we actually just share referrals amongst each other. And they're really good quality referrals where we're actually introducing each other to our contacts because we've built relationship with these people. They've come to know, like, and trust us. So they feel comfortable introducing us to their contacts, right? So we get this healthy stream of referrals. The reason I said meet with them once a month, schedule it once a week per person. So you might meet with Aiden, who sells payroll sales services, but not staffing, in week 1. You're going to meet with Joey, who's like an employment lawyer and kind of consults with these companies in week 2. Allie, who's an insurance agent, maybe sells benefits, things like that, in week 3. And then Harry, who's another HR manager that's well-connected, a bit of an influencer in the space, week 4. And you just rotate this through, and that's part of your work plan. And you're getting referrals, and you're also giving. You're not just taking. It's the law of reciprocity here, and you're going to pour into this because you're going to get to know, like, and trust them and be confident that if you introduce them to your contacts, that they're going to protect your reputation, right? Super free. You can implement this right away. It will pay dividends, guaranteed. LinkedIn plan, as we're getting closer to landing this plan. Like I said, I want to say about 5 minutes at the end for any questions. But the LinkedIn plan here, this is the 5-part plan. Obviously, you're going to create your target prospects. You're going to identify who your target prospects are. Okay, and you want to fill your network up with these target prospects because part of the LinkedIn algorithm for suggesting you to other people is they look at your network. And if you have a lot of HR managers in your network, they're going to recommend your profile to other HR managers. So you really want to create a critical mass of your target prospects in your network for that reason, as well as also your reach of your message, right? So create searches for your target prospects, save those searches so you're notified anytime somebody new enters that search criteria, or maybe someone from your list or network changes jobs, right? And then you're just going to plan times to send connection requests to that target audience, right? I like to align it to the campaign that I just showed you, but you're going to basically just methodically send out connection requests. Not everybody is going to accept, but most people will, right? It's amazing how many people are active on LinkedIn but won't respond to your email, right? And then you're going to share and engage with your audience's posts in those groups. If they share something, don't do it to be spammy or disingenuine or inauthentic or disauthentic, I guess. I don't know. Inauthentic. Don't be cringy, right? If they share something that you actually connect with, put your own thoughts, share it, add your thoughts to it. Don't share without comments, right? LinkedIn doesn't like that. They actually want original opinion and original thought. So if you share something, if you see something that they shared that's really good, share it, add your thoughts. If you want to become part of their conversation, don't share it and add your thoughts, comment on it. And that's a way of engaging it, sharing it, things like that is like really cool. If you want to build up some kind of emotional equity or a law of reciprocity, If you see that your client shares something and that you see they're promoting something, share it and just put, hey, I'm sharing this for reach because it's a great cause from a great company, right? And they see that you're doing things to help them out and not always just pitching them. Okay. Post 3 times a week. Your 3 posts in my model, community, or sorry, corporate, community, and then personal. Corporate, this is going to be your hot job, your top prospect, top candidate, things like that you're going to be sharing out there. Maybe something special about your company, some award, some recognition, some milestone. Community post, this is the bridge between corporate and personal. This is stuff that you care about in your community. Maybe a chamber that you belong to is doing something special. Maybe one of your clients is doing something special. You're going to kind of promote something or discuss something or share thoughts around something that's going on in your community that's kind of bigger than you, your company, your clients, all of that stuff, right? And then a personal post. This is going to be something that's personal to you, not TMA, not super personal in your personal details, but maybe something that's important to you. As an example, I don't know if y'all can see me on the screen here. I ran the Spartan race last year. I finished this year. It was a super proud moment, something I always wanted to do. I just shared about that on LinkedIn. One of my highest engaging posts, because people like to connect with people. LinkedIn is still a social media channel. So be social, get to share your personality so people can understand who you are. And that will start to attract your audience. People will realize you're human and people want to do business with human beings, right? Biggest one that people miss is nurturing their existing network. This one is huge. Plan time just to go through all of your connections on a regular basis and just reach out to people and say, hi, how you doing? I see you change jobs, or I see this happen, or, and just reach out to them in the DM, right? Just nurture that network. You have an amazing database of prospects, in your LinkedIn network that you can just go through and methodically nurture and continue to build relationship with, okay? Huge thing that your salespeople need to be trained on how to do. Last piece is define accountability. I'm going to go through this fast. There's a lot of slides with a lot of words. They're meant to be sort of templates or guides or frameworks. So I'm not going to read a bunch of it. I'm just going to kind of talk through it. But this really is the framework for the culture of excellence for salespeople that want to strive and push each other to succeed and not just settle for mediocrity, right? So the first thing that you need to do, clearly state and define what success looks like. If you want to get somewhere, tell somebody where you're going. Simple as that. This is what success looks like. This is the revenue. This is where it's going to come from. This is what it looks like from a client and headcount standpoint. This is what we need to achieve this year. This is what success looks like, right? Define it. Put it into KPIs, key performance indicators. This is where you're starting to get into that management system. How much outreach does it take to get a meeting? How many meetings does it take to get a proposal? How many proposals does it take to get a contract back? How many contracts does it take to get a billing client? Like if you map all of that data, you'll be able to clearly define exactly how much outreach meetings and proposals are needed in order to get you to your goal. And you can clearly state this, and then your salespeople can report on what they're doing. And then you as the sales manager will know, are they doing enough work to hit the goal or not, right? Really important slide right here. Determine upfront what unacceptable results are and what you will do about it. Do not live with mediocrity. Let people know that that we have a mission to achieve, and if we do not achieve the mission, that changes will have to be made. People have to understand that, right? So these are the slides I'm going to run through in the next 2 minutes. This is just my meeting cadence with the purpose of the meetings. I run weekly, monthly, and quarterly meetings. They're essentially weekly meetings and monthly meetings and then quarterly reviews. In the reviews, we review the performance and we reset the plan. But just to talk through this is like in our weekly meetings, the purpose, quick check-in. This is what I did last week. You keep people focused on the goal. They have to restate the goal. You're going to see a reporting template in a second. Get to restate the goal, get to share any challenges, opportunities, victories. This is kind of like navigation, right? You don't stare at the map the entire time between where you're starting and where you're going to. You're just going to look down occasionally just to make sure that you're still on the right route, right? That's it. This is all you're doing. These are quick updates. You do not want to consume too much of your people's time because the more time they spend in meetings is the less time they spend selling. And that's just not good, right? So be quick and efficient. This is literally a format for you. Again, this is a fill in the blank deal. I put this in here so you can actually use this, apply it, maybe tweak it for your particular business. But this is huge. This focuses on the format of getting your people to report on what is important, the KPIs. the goals. So any given time, they know what they're supposed to do and they can measure themselves and share that measurement with the team and the managers on how they did against that goal, right? Monthly meetings, it's like an expanded version of the weekly, but this is your kind of quarter, your kind of your 1/3 check-in. Like, are we 1/3 of the way to the quarterly goal? This is the time that you might make some changes if necessary. If you see that your people's conversion rates are a little bit lower, like improve the training, right? Dig in a little bit as the manager and kind of coach them up a little bit, right? But you're not going to change the campaign too much. It's a quarterly campaign. You'll make minor nuance changes. That's it here. This is what the monthly meeting report will look like. It's a little bit longer, not much, but you can see the format is very, very similar. Again, you can read this afterwards. This is not intended to go over. This is just to give you as a guide after the fact. Monthly reviews, these are the big ones. Or sorry, quarterly reviews. These are the big ones where we're actually looking at, did we do what we needed to do in the quarter? Because if we don't hit the quarter, we're not likely to hit the annual goals, right? So this is where we're going to review all the performance, see what needs to change. Do we need to change the approach? Do we need to focus on the messaging? Do we need to train skills and performance? All of that stuff. And then we will build a new plan and launch it for the next quarter. Okay. And that's how we roll. And we just run through that cycle. So ultimately what we just did here, 1 minute over, is we defined for clarity on what good business is and what it's not, so everyone knows what we're looking for. We segmented the market to actually quickly define and get to the good business. We crafted our message so we know how to say what needs to be said to good clients to get them to engage with us. We set clear goals and communicated it. We built out an approach to go take all of that to the market and hit our goals. And then I walked you through a very simple accountability system that I use, that any sales manager can use to actually instill that culture of excellence and performance. So now I will open up for any questions. As I do, I'm going to leave this on the slide here just to let you know the Staffing Sales Summit. It's February 20th to 22nd. It is in Orlando, Florida. It's super warm down there. It's nice. We have an amazing lineup of speakers. If you want to see what everyone's talking about, you can scan the QR code. That's going to take you to the page to see what the agenda is and who's talking on what. But this is literally the best lineup of speakers you're going to get. It's focused exclusively on training salespeople. For people that actually register to attend before January 31st, they're also going to get these free bonuses. They're going to get access to my 5-week prospecting masterclass and my 5-week sales masterclass. This is on demand. It is some of the best training I've ever built. And it literally is a masterclass, just guideline, step-by-step, exactly how to prospect and exactly how to sell based on value. And we'll also give you a copy of Tom's book at the summit if you register by then. And there's actually a really cool bonus that we're going to be announcing shortly that we're going to be adding. But any questions here? Can you touch on rejection, insight, suggestions? Can you clarify that? Rejection, insight, suggestions. You mean like handling objections? Okay. So yes, I can. I'm going to do this in 1 minute, and then I'm going to turn things back over to David because he's got a couple things to share. So yeah, you are going to get objections. I will say that Robert Reed is going to be doing a full masterclass on this one, and he's going to go through all of them, literally the dozen deal killers here. But how I deal with it, I try to really understand where they're coming from. An objection is usually not the real reason they're saying no to you. It's actually usually because they don't understand the value of what you provide. So I try to take a step back. I don't get defensive. I just try to understand. So if they're like, hey, your price is too high. Interesting. Why do you feel that the price is too high? Does my solution not seem like it's going to meet your need or solve the problem here? Right? Like I want to start to understand, like, what are they comparing it to? So I'll basically try to take a step back and just ask some questions around that to understand where they're coming from and why they're bringing it up. If they say, hey, I'm happy with my current providers, I'll usually ask, that's awesome. I don't usually hear that. I usually hear right now that everyone's looking to make a little bit of a change and they would like to improve performance. Is there anything that your current providers could do that could help you or that you would actually appreciate and it would help your business improve? And I'm just going to look for anything. Trust me, if they got nothing, I move on, right? Like I'll push a little bit, but if they're happy, there's not a problem, right? Remember, is there a problem? Is it worth solving? And can I solve it? If there's no problem or it's not worth solving, they're not a good prospect and they're a waste of time. David, I'm going to hand it back over to you because I want to stay on time. I see these other questions. If you can actually send these to me after the fact, I'll draft up an email and then you can send it out to the group with more detailed answers if that's okay.
Yeah, will do. Thanks so much, Dan. This was fantastic. And if everyone wants to give Dan a little bit of applause or a thumbs up or a little heart, show some love. Thank you so much for great information. I'm really excited about the Staffing Sales Summit coming up next month. It's going to be a one of a kind. There's no other event like that in the industry. So
Nothing.
we're excited to play a small role in what looks like a fantastic event. And now that I'm hiding out in Florida right now, it's really nice to get down here this time of year.
That's why I put it in
Uh,
Florida for you.
and just a couple of last things. Some of you probably get this already. Some of you probably heard about today's webinar because you're on our email list. We changed our educational newsletter to a weekly format, and it's the Smart Ideas Weekly. And every Saturday morning, we send out a one quick idea to help you with sales, to help you with marketing, to help you with recruiting. If you're not getting it, you can go to haleymarketing.com/smart ideas, add yourself to the list. Not only do you get the newsletter, but you also get invited to all of our upcoming Lunch with Haley events. Dan, if you'll just click down one. Also, our podcast. So many of you are already listeners. Thank you for that. To Secrets of Staffing for Success. Our very own Brad Miley, who has run our Insights show along with Matt Lozar, our Director of Recruitment Marketing. We have a new show called Take the Stage that just launched where we're talking to consultants and vendors to the industry, people who work with lots of staffing companies to get their insights, what they're seeing going on in the industry, what they're seeing in terms of new technologies and new solutions, and just to give you lots of ideas to help you make your business more successful. And last but not least, if you'll click down one more, in just a few weeks, our next Lunch with Haley. So this one's going to be me, and I'm probably going to drag Jeff Stotts on here with me because he knows all things automation, but we're going to be looking at conversion funnels. So this is how to take your digital marketing and really turn it into sales leads and people applying to jobs. So we're going to look at the techniques that go into conversion funnels and some things that you can do. All right, we are, I think, right at the buzzer, actually 1 minute over. Dan, thank you so much for being part of today's Lunch with Haley webinar. And thank you to everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, David. Everyone have an amazing, amazing day.
Take care, guys.